Pardee, losing in the finals of Grand Prix Albuquerque last year. So the other thing that makes this interesting too is that both players know what they're up against because they both know and talk about the deck together. So we're underway here in round number 3. These players have come off of buys. Pardee actually didn't have any, but Merriam had 2. And he's under the gun right away from a Judge's Familiar and a Frostburn Weird.
Yeah, Merriam did have the turn 1 Cloudfin Raptor, which is pretty big in the matchup. One of the dangers in the mono blue mirror is the game's going to be fast because both players play a lot of 1 and 2 drop creatures, and no one really has a way to come back from behind on the board. At least not in game 1. So Cloudfin Raptor can be great because it is it has the potential to be a 3/4 that you can get down on turn 1.
There are draws that do exist, as you did mention, where there's just no coming back. You just get steamrolled.
Right.
You can't do anything because you can't really interact in the opening games. Pardee with a beautiful draw here at Nightveil Spectre as well. So he's got a 1, 2, and a 3. We'll see if he's able to find the Thassa or Master Waves to kind of complete the combo or the curve, as it were.
Right, and this is, so I said before, this is where Cloudfin Raptor can be really nice. You don't want to get hit by Nightveil Spectre in this matchup. It's very dangerous. But what Ross does have going for him is that his Cloudfin Raptor, because it evolved once, can just block Nightveil Spectre here.
Hall of Triumph, a new card. As you see, Pardee's going to cast a Master Wave, so he will complete the curve. Count the Devotioneer of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But Hall of Triumph actually does a pretty nice job of putting on the brakes in this situation. However, the Master of Waves has shown up. A lot of Elementals will be joining the party in just a moment. And if Ross isn't careful, he can lose this one really quick.
Yeah, and this is one of the dangers in the mirror match is that you can get behind on the board very fast, and there's not too much. There's very few things that you can do to catch up. You know, Ross could have a Cyclonic Rift. He could have a Rapid Hybridization for the Master Waves. But barring those sorts of things, he's going to be taking a lot of damage very quickly.
Well, Rapid Hybridization wouldn't have been great in this situation because Judge's Familiar is hanging out, but now a second Master Waves is going to add more Elementals to the board. More importantly, it's going to pump up all the Elementals that are already out there, and Pardee is going to go reaching. So I think those are going to be coming into the red zone in just a moment.
Yeah, and this is pretty huge here. Ross is going to need something like a Nykthos into Cyclonic Rift to deal with this.
Yeah.
That is the big trump in this matchup, however, though. If you do get enough mana to Cyclonic Rift to your opponent, that is pretty much the best way you can come back.
Well, he's going to need one of each, and he only has one of each in his deck. He has 1 Rift and 1 Nykthos, so see if he can put together the 1-2 punch here. Hall of Triumph is pretty good at making your creatures bigger, but there are too many out there right now for Pardee.
Yeah.
And Merriam's going to show his Master Waves and say, man, this would have been really good if I could have gotten this on the table, all this devotion. Can I even make it out of this turn? The answer is no, and he's going to pick up his permanent. So Sam Pardee is going to win game number 1 here over Ross Merriam in the Mono Blue Devotion Mirror.
Yeah, being on the play is really important in the Mono Blue Devotion Mirror. Getting ahead on the board is probably more important. So cards like Master of Waves are just back-breaking. Game 2 and 3 is where this becomes a lot more interesting. You can't just slam creatures nearly as quickly.
Now, one thing to take note, and we're going to look at their sideboards because they're actually pretty different, but the main decks, as far as the differences here, it's a small one. Pardee has 2 Biden of Thassas and 1 Hall of Triumph. Merriam has 2 Halls and 1 Biden. Everything else is the same.
Yeah, and that does favor Merriam slightly. Though really, I mean, a 59-card mirror, you can't say anyone's particularly favored.
Things do change after sideboard, of course. We're going to take a look at Ross's deck list first here. He's got a Mizium Skin, a Dispel, 2 Gainsay, 2 Negate, 2 Dissolve, a Claustrophobia, 2 copies of Domestication, a Biden of Thassa, 2 Jace Architect of Thought, and 1 Jace Memory Adept. If you're familiar with Ross's win from last weekend in Providence, you'll note that this sideboard is very similar to what he did last weekend. I expect to see Gainsays come in. I expect to see Domestication come in. How do you feel about Claustrophobia as a one-of coming in here?
Claustrophobia is okay. It has a lot of blue devotion, which is great. It's very good at answering Nightveil Specters, so that would be your benefit from it. I'm not sure you have time to play a 3-mana sorcery speed removal spell in this matchup, especially one that doesn't remove a Master of Waves. So I'm only lukewarm on the card. But what I do like in Ross's sideboard is Mizium Skin, actually. One of the things, when you get ahead, you generally get ahead with a card like a Nightveil Spectre or a Master of Waves, and Domestication is so huge in this matchup that having a Mizium Skin to stop that Domestication or stop that Rapid Hybridization seems like a perfectly fine thing to do.
Well, the big question is, does Sam have some? It looks like he has 2 in his sideboard, among other things.
Yeah, so Sam does have 2 Domestication, and you'd expect your mono blue player to have at least 2. They have had more in the past. I think as this deck has gotten less popular, there are fewer Domestications in sideboards. But there are other weapons that Sam has too. He has an extra Cyclonic Rift in his sideboard. Probably will see that come in. He does have 3 Gainsays instead of 2. Those are very good in the matchup. I can't imagine he would not bring those in. So I think Sam gains a little more out of sideboard than Ross does right now.
I think the big thing here for Sam too is because, as we saw in game 1, it's a very tempo oriented game, and it's very hard to come back on defense unless things line up appropriately. Sam won game 1, so ideally, I think he has an advantage here just because if he loses this game, he's on the play for game 3.
I mean, this has a very tennis-esque feel to it, where basically the guy who wins the die roll is serving. So Ross has to break serve here to win, and the advantage is pretty similar. The analogy continues there. You know, I would say the person on the play is probably a 2-to-1 advantage in any of these games.
Well, we're going to see if Merriam can come back and tie things up here against Pardee. If you are just joining us, however, we do appreciate you on this Friday. Cedric Phillips, Matthias Hunt, Star City Games Open Series featuring the Invitational. Our Season 2 Envy is finally here in Columbus, Ohio at the Origins Game Fair. Round 3 of 16 is where we are. We've got one more round of Standard after this before we do switch into Legacy, which will definitely be a blast because it's Legacy. Duh. All right. At SCG Live, hashtag SCGINVI for your tweets all weekend long. I'm taking a look at the SCGINVI feed right now. A lot of people excited about the announcements we just made a little while ago about SCG Game Night, as well as modern events coming to the Open Series in July.
Yeah, like I said, still excited for modern events. I really think that'll make. I would expect to see a lot more players at the Sunday Opens, just in general.
Oh yeah,
because of the modern IQs.
Yeah, come on down, cast some cards or don't, whatever. Yeah. If you don't like Karn, well, I don't know how.
You know, I can get. While I would never cast Karn myself, okay. I can respect the fact that you're playing a 3-mana card, a 7-mana card with only 3 lands in play. You know, like you're close enough that I'm like, yeah, all right, that's cool. Not my style, but it's still good.
You're still a big Scapeshift fan? I know it won the last Grand Prix.
I like Scapeshift. I like Storm a lot too now.
Okay, all right. I know you like your decks with your numbers. Yeah. So Scapeshift.
I don't know why you play. I mean, yeah. They don't have creatures. That's good. That's a start. I mean, Sakura Tri-Builder is a creature, but not really.
Is it a creature?
No, he's more like a rampant growth that has a fog on it, kind of.
That's a really good creature then.
It's really. I mean, he is a really good creature.
There's some really good creatures in this matchup as well. You saw Pardee win game number 1 with double Master of Waves. He had a great curve. Started off with Judge's Familiar into Frostburn Weird into, Nightveil Spectre into double Master of Waves. That's what this deck is looking to do every time. While it does want to draw Thassa, it was not necessary that game. And again, I think that a lot is going to change now because of what happened last week. And I'm not surprised to see either one of these players playing this deck, but I wouldn't be surprised if we had more players playing Mono Blue Devotion because of Ross's win last weekend.
Yeah, well, and I really think Ross capitalized on the fact that a lot of people cheated their sideboards. Like I said, mono blue, like blue-white players not playing Detention Spheres, that's so good for mono blue.
Yeah.
Detention Sphere is one of the really good cards against them. You can't Judge's Familiar it answers Thassa. You know, their Thassas just kind of get free reign right now.
That's a beautiful spot to be in, of course. You see both players looking at their opener. It looks like they're going to keep Merriam with just a land go, so no 1-drop here. He was playing 9 last week, and he had a Singleton Gale Rider Sliver in his deck. He no longer has that here, playing 25 lands this weekend. He does have a 2nd land and a 2-drop, and it is a Tidebinder Mage as he passes back to Pardee, and I have to imagine Sam will have a 2-drop as well, but he does not.
Ross, he unfortunately looks like he drew a Cloudfin Raptor on the 2nd turn. But as what we're seeing here is that the post-board games really aren't as much about that early board presence and curving the other person out. Players are so much better equipped to deal with it. Sam can gainsay that Master of Waves, for example. He can domesticate the Nightveil Spectre if he needs to. That said, still having a threat down is good as it forces action from your opponent.
And now you can kind of feel where both players are kind of jockeying for position here instead of just trying to railroad the other player, and I'm more aggressive than you are. You know, you can see in Pardee's hand, he has a Dispel. You see in Merriam's hand, he just plays the 4th land. I feel like he has a counter spell hanging out here. He's not adding anything to the board. He's not opening himself to a counterspell. None of that stuff. As Pardee is just playing a land go sort of game. Very different from what we saw in the first game. Yeah,
Ross is forcing action with Tidebinder Mage, but it's not too much. It's, you know, this is a 10-turn clock, so Ross would like to maybe have 1 more power on the board. Sam really is trenched in. As you said, he boarded in Dispel, which really kind of tells you what Sam's opinion on this matchup is post-board.
Just the land and go for Pardee again. He has not played a spell yet this game. You can say he played a spell, I guess, because he played a Mutavault. It was a spell land after all.
He played a blocker at the very least.
Wouldn't be surprised to see a trade here.
Depending on the number of lands he has, by blocking with Mutavault, he's going to force Ross to tap out. And so if Sam really likes his hand, or to tap for something, so if Sam really likes his hand in a counter war, he may make this trade.
And he is going to activate his Mutavault right away, and he looks like he does want to trade. Merriam goes reaching for mana.
Yeah, he has a Mizium Skin. Remember, in addition to Hexproof, Mizium Skin gives a creature +0/+1. So this actually just makes it is a perfect combat trick to beat the Mutavault.
And now players are going to start casting spells. Now here's a Dispel on Mizium skin. I didn't expect to say that today or this weekend.
Absolutely. It just shows, you want to fight a counter war, but you don't want to fight it too much. Remember, you're fighting this counter war so that you can win the next counter war.
You see Merriam's hand right now as well. He has a copy of Master of Waves, but he's a little bit gun-shy to deploy that, I imagine, because of a card like Domestication. He is going to try to attempt to resolve a Thassa, potentially into a counterspell here, so maybe we have another counter war in just a moment.
Yeah, I mean, what this tells me is that Ross is checking for a gainsay. He's leaving up 2 mana of his own to represent his own gainsay. So we'll see whether Thassa resolves. If you're Sam, you probably have to fight over this.
If you have the counter spell, I think you have to counter it because it's such a powerful card in the matchup.
Yeah.
And so now Gainsay is going to be targeting Thassa, and it gets the job done. So all Merriam can do is pass the turn back here. But when is Pardee going to add to his board? I suppose he's not really much of a rush. He's at 14. There's only a Cloudfin Raptor over there, and it's just a 0-1 anyway.
Yeah,
Here's a Thassa for him.
Ideally, he would make a Night Veil Spectre or a Thassa here and leave up an additional counterspell, and Sam did just that. So now the action is forced on Ross. Sam is content to do nothing because he has the advantage.
Merriam going to go reaching for some mana. This is a Jace, Architect of Thought. So you see, again, both players have sideboarded into a much different deck. Jace is going to take down the Judge's Familiar, an Island, and a Mutavault will be the cards to split.
So in response to the Thassa, Ross has to make his own card advantage, or he has to have his own board presence. He goes for Jace, which is probably better than Thassa if they both just get to stick on the board indefinitely. There is the danger that Sam can start to build up to Thassa being a 5/5.
One thing I noticed there, Ross leaving up 2 mana again instead of deploying the Judge's Familiar and maybe attacking for 1 with the Raptor. He's representing a counterspell. He didn't counter Thassa last time, so now you have to ask yourself the question, okay, well, what counterspell do you have? Here's a Master of Waves. And it is a Gainsay now, so maybe that was his draw step.
It could have been his draw step. It may also be that he would rather let Thassa happen. He'd rather use the Gainsay to fight over his own Jace, perhaps. Like he may be fine with this trade of Thassa for Jace. If he thinks Jace is better, he's probably fine with it.
Merriam's going to lead out with the Judge's Familiar. I love this play here because now he can play follow-up spells, not have to worry about that 2 mana that's untapped. You have a Gainsay? Well, my Judge's Familiar is going to counter that. Also, Judge's Familiar provides the devotion necessary for the Master. Really nice sequencing there.
Nice sequencing. Ross has decided it's time. He's clear. He's spent, he has enough cards. He's now going to go on the aggressive and force Sam to have answers. He's taken down his counter spells. He has 1 card left in hand, and he's going to have a lot of creatures.
No use of Jace yet either. I wouldn't be surprised to see that tick down, but you want to leave it in play first because of devotion for Master of Waves. And this is probably going to force Pardee's hand now if it wasn't going to before. You see Sam is going to tap a little bit of mana. He says, all right, with that on this deck, I'd like to cast Rapid Hybridization. Is that okay? The answer looks to be yes, but there will be some evolution here, assuming that Merriam does everything correctly, and it looks like he will. Now, yep, it only evolved once, not twice.
Because they were 1/0s when they entered the battlefield.
Correct.
So you can only evolve it once. They never actually got to be 2/1s. They all showed up and instantly died.
Now, the big question here is how does Merriam want to use his Jace, assuming he doesn't forget? He could take up and leave his Jace in play for the long haul, or he can just try to get the cards now. Short term or long term? I wonder which way Ross wants to go.
Yeah, well, things didn't really work out exactly how Ross wanted. I think he put Sam on having a counterspell, like a Gainsay, in that situation. Sam had the Rapid Hybridization, so he actually got to answer Ross's Master Waves. Ross got a 3/3 out of the deal, so Ross still has a presence on his board. But right now, his counters are down, and Sam does have the opportunity to resolve the spell of his choice.
Sam kept that top card pretty quickly. Just going to play a Night Veil Spectre and pass the turn back. We're 1 devotion away from Thassa being turned on here. Merriam going to take down his Jace. 3 cards are coming: a Tidebinder Mage, a Hall of Triumph, and an Island. Going to be interesting to see the split here. It looks like Hall's going to go on its own.
Yeah, and you hit it exactly there as to what's important with that Night Veil Spectre. That it's a 2/3 is somewhat relevant, but what's more important is that it's 1 mana away from Thassa getting active, and Ross has to be concerned about that.
Merriam will take the Hall. He's got a couple other cards in his hand. It looks like he has a Domestication in the grip, and it looks like he's going to lead off with that. So he says, I would like to borrow this Night Veil Spectre, if you don't mind, and he will. Going to play a land. This is a Hall of Triumph.
Yeah. Ross is forcing Sam to have answers at this point. He's done playing the control game, and yeah, just pushing. He's tapping out and pushing as much damage as he can. It would take a lot for Sam to recover from this board. Remember, the 1 true recovery spell is Cyclonic Rift, but Judge's Familiar is going to keep that under check.
I think Ross has decided it's time to get my opponent dead. no more messing around. I know we played a reactive game and jockeying for position, but it's time to get this show on the road. And that's exactly what he's doing. Attacking with this Frog Lizard, that is a 3-3. That Cloud from Raptor, which is a 3-4 due to the Hall of Triumph, and the Judge's Familiar, which is a 2-2, also due to the Hall. So a lot of damage coming in here, and Pardee looks to be on a 2-turn clock.
Yeah, Pardee's in a tough spot. And I think this once again just shows, like, Cloudfin Raptor is a really good card in this matchup, even when you play it on turn 4, which is kind of interesting. Normally you think of that as a turn 1 or bust play, but it gets its evolutions. It lets you get a pretty big flyer for a very low investment. And we're seeing right now, it's ruling the sky.
Looks like a lot of damage is going to come across. And I'm with you. I'm not sure exactly how Sam gets himself out of this. It looks like the way to start is taking his Nightveil Spectre back. Thassa's Scry here seems like it's going to be pretty important.
Yeah, that Hall of Triumph hurting Sam yet again. He can't, even if he plays Nightveil Spectre, it would be chump blocking the Cloudfin Raptor instead of bouncing off it. In addition, Sam's going to need 2 blockers because we have a 3-3 Frog Lizard, and remember, it's a 2-2 Judge's Familiar.
So Pardee at 4 life, taking a look at the Scry, taking a look at the Grip as well. Hall of Triumph causing a little bit of trouble in this game. So what will the Grand Prix Albuquerque runner-up do in this situation? Looks like he's going to add that card to his hand quickly. Cast a Tidebinder Mage, shut down that Frog Lizard, play a Nightveil Spectre, and he's feeling powerful enough to attack with Thassa as well. So down goes Jace. Merriam's going to untap. We'll see if Merriam can find a way to finish off the game. Right now, Domestication will likely get the job done.
Yeah, well, Sam with a pretty powerful turn of his own. So yeah, he activates the Thassa. He does have enough blockers left because Tidebinder Mage keeps down that Frog Lizard. I think he went with a pretty calculated risk. Remember, Ross had no cards in his hand, so Sam knew he was just had to beat a top deck. And it looks like he may have done it.
Pardee scries that top card down to the bottom. You saw Cloudfin Raptor, which is a 3-4, come into the red zone, put Pardee down to 1. Now he's going to cast the Domestication on that Cloudfin Raptor, and it's going to resolve. So the Cloudfin Raptor is back to being a 2-3. It's just on the other side of the table. And now here comes Thassa. It looks like yet again, this game is shifting.
What a turnaround for Sam here. Pretty deftly both players have to choose when to go, when to stop being the control that can be the aggro deck. Sam spends all his life points as resources here and makes sure to keep 1 for himself. And now, yeah, he has all the creatures, and it's Ross on the defensive.
Now let's keep in mind, it only takes 1 draw from Ross to get the job done, presumably. All it takes is 1 Thassa to make Judge's Familiar unblockable. That's it. So Pardee's got to get the door closed very fast.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a bounce spell, a rapid hybridization. Ross can, if he can force through Judge's Familiar, he has it too.
Pardee going to untap those permanents. He's going to take a draw. He can attack for a lot here, but I don't think a lot is going to get it all done. I think he's got to play at least 2 more turns this game, this one and the next one. And now he's going to go reaching here with the creatures, see which ones he wants to attack with. It's just going to be these 2, a Nightveil Spectre and a Thassa. We're going to see a Nightveil Spectre trigger, and it's an island. That's going to come into play for Pardee. He's going to tap some mana, another Nightveil Spectre. Following this up with another Nightveil Spectre. The shields are down. Can Merriam top deck?
Yeah, now he needs to top deck a Thassa. By playing that second flyer, Sam took away the rapid hybridization top deck. And I think Ross drew the rapid hybridization.
Yep.
So had Sam not played out his entire hand and had the second flyer, well, he has 3 flyers, actually.
Yeah, now he's got 3 out there now, so this looks like it's even more difficult for Merriam. Rapid Hybridization was not the card he was looking for. He was looking for the God of the Sea, but that is not what the draw step yielded. I don't know how much this Rapid Hybridization affects things and if he can get back into the game with that draw. He's going to start by playing an island and probably try to bluff something here, but I don't think Rapid will get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, the question is whether or not Rapid can keep him alive for 1 more draw, and I'm not positive it can do that. If Sam is aggressive enough with his Thassa, he can just make lethal damage unblockable and go for it. So Ross is going to have to bluff if he wants to stay alive.
Pardee going to scry the top card down to the bottom. Reaching for some mana here as he did draw a card for the turn. He says, I'd like to make Thassa unblockable. I imagine some other critters will be as well. Tidebinder Mage looks like it wants to come into the red zone for free, as does this Nightveil Spectre. Everybody's coming on in now, maybe? Yeah, I figured they would.
Whole team. Except for Cloudfin Raptor, he's still leaving that 1 back.
And an extension of the hand. Sam Pardee is going to get the job done in this match over Ross Merriam. The mono blue mirror goes to the Grand Prix Albuquerque runner-up.
Yeah, pretty great matchup there. as we saw, both players, it's interesting, early game they went for gainsays, and then the question was when do you deploy your threats and how hard can you make them hit? If you're Ross, you have to wonder if you could have sequenced things a little bit quicker to get that extra point across. I'm not sure the line was there, but you know he's going to be looking for it after the match.